I think it's
Get,
an interesting, I think it's an interesting thing, and I've advocated for this several times that we need to have, I would say, a mandatory class, and it's not all year round. So it's limited resources we're actually spending on this, but a class for everybody in school from, say, 8th to 12th grade, where they learn CPR and first aid, because you never know when things, when you need these skills. That can be your teacher, or somebody that's waiting for their child to be picked up, and anybody can happen. Anything can happen that would need those skills. Good morning, everybody, and happy 4th of July. This is Quinn Schmidt with Mega Voice, Make It Education Great Again. It is 4th of July, and I wish everybody a great day. Be safe out there. And speaking of safety, I want to introduce my guest today, Larry Stafford. He is an expert on CPR and first aid, and that's part of our educational talk today. Welcome to the show, Larry, and happy 4th of July to you and your wife.
Thank you, Karina, and happy Independence Day to you as well.
Thank you.
I hope you have a safe and happy Independence Day. My name is Larry Stafford, and I am currently part of Larry Stafford Consulting. And what we do is I'm going to do American Heart, Heart Saver, basic life support, and advanced cardiac life support, CPR classes and education. And with that, I'd like to reach out and just go over some statistics that I've been recently reading about the need for CPR. And apparently, Lieutenant Governor Nunez has put out an initiative for CPR because we're up to about 60 drownings so far this summer.
Which is considerable. That's
a lot. It's one of the highest numbers that they've had.
That's really scary high.
So they're saying that they could have a lot more saves if people obviously see somebody's drowning, but more importantly, how to get people up out of the water and do CPR when they're drowning. The other issue is it looks like there's a lot of children. So in my classes, I would go over adult and child CPR as well as infant CPR. For lay people or non-rescuers, non-medical people. For medical people, I will do basic life support classes. So I know you have to have your basic life support for if you want to be a CNA, an RN, an EMT, a paramedic, a nurse. So if you're thinking about going to one of those schools, or maybe you're a student, a high school student, considering getting into a medical career, it could give you a good opportunity to kind of get an idea of what you might be getting into.
So Larry, I want to break in real quick and just ask you to enlighten us about your background and how you became the expert in this area, and what's your academic and practical background in this, because you have a long history.
I do. Actually, it goes back to when I was a kid. If everybody remembers the show with Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto, Emergency, I first got interested in it then, like every other kid, and I lived across the street from my local fire department outside of Cleveland, and the police station. I used to go up there a lot. I became friends with them. And there's actually a picture of me in an ambulance from 1976 with the city's first ambulance. So that's where I first got interested in it. Through that, in high school, I had to take first aid and CPR classes. They were part of a health class, if you will. And then after that, I was in the military. I was in the Air Force as a security police, and we had to know first aid and CPR through that. After getting out of the military, I kind of scrounged around for a little bit and went to EMT school and graduated from, at the time it was Sarasota Votech. Now it's SC Suncoast Technical Institute. But I became an EMT, and that was in 1989, and that's when it really all started. From that, I was an EMT for a few years. I became a basic life sport instructor, 1989. I left here and then I moved back up to Cleveland where I worked for Cleveland EMS, a very busy ambulance service and EMS service in a large inner city where I graduated paramedic school. And again, I continued on through that, continued teaching. Eventually, I ended up going to nursing school. I graduated nursing school in 2005. So I have extensive background in that. I've been teaching American Heart Association BLS since 1989 and ACLS since about 1993. At one
So
time I
you
was an
mentioned
EMS
one thing,
surgeon.
and I want to touch on that because you mentioned something that you had taken your first classes during high school, correct?
Correct.
Right. And the issue today is that a lot of these courses that we used to have, home economics, I've talked about that several times and blogged on it too. A lot of these courses have been taken out. And we now have the Lieutenant Governor of Florida advocating that we bring it back. What do you think has been the impact on the overall general education, not the academic aspect of say high school, but the overall education that students get in high school, that they have taken out courses such as, or the opportunity to take courses such as CPR first aid?
So those courses up until about 2020 were all hands-on, long class days, practical. The instructor was able to bring their experience. But when you have a group, which is what I do, I don't do the computer simulator, I do actual groups of people. It's really good because the education comes from different sources, including students and instructors. The younger some of these people are trained, the better they are. It also helps them with their later career paths into EMS, firefighting, public safety, physicians, nurses, medical. It also helps too if they want to get into industry, if they want to get into for OSHA requirements and whatnot. It helps with those kind of things too. But when you learn to recognize things, I'll give you examples. I've been out numerous times and I've seen people that just look bad and they would collapse. Or you would just see people that just don't look right. Maybe they're having a stroke. Or honestly, I've seen people cardiac arrest pretty much in public places. So, you know, you recognize these things. You can do early interventions. You can have better outcomes for that person. And it's really a good learning experience. It also helps you critically think in a different way. And the fact that maybe I need to know my surroundings a little better. Maybe I need to look for things a little sharper. And you never know where it's going to lead you.
I think it's an interesting, I think it's an interesting thing, and I've advocated for this several times, that we need to have, I would say, a mandatory class, and it's not all year round. So it's limited resources we're actually spending on this, but a class for everybody in school from, say, 8th to 12th grade, where they learn CPR and first aid, because you never know when things, when you need these skills. That can be your teacher, or, you know, somebody that's waiting for their child to be picked up, and anybody can happen. You know, anything can happen that would need those skills.
Right.
And be able to recognize those. It's not just a skill that's limited to say adults to learn. An example, if a parent, for example, is having a heart attack suddenly, I mean, that can happen at any age. The fact that the child can recognize these signs and do the right thing, call 911, give a description of the vitals, start the process with guidance, but also know what they need to do in that situation. Because you don't want to start CPR in somebody that doesn't have a need for it. That can really mess it up for that person. So recognize when you need CPR and when you need to just put them in the right position so that they can continue to breathe, or a person that has an epileptic seizure. You don't want to do CPR on somebody that has epileptic seizures because they're still breathing, right? What do you
Right.
think about that? Is it something that we should have as a mandatory course?
I do.
And then a
And just
refresher
to
before
clarify,
they exit high school?
right. I agree with you. Just to clarify, you only do CPR if somebody's unresponsive, not breathing, and doesn't have a pulse. So you're not going to thump on somebody's chest if they're talking.
Exactly.
But if you can see the early intervention signs, that's very important. The other thing is, in schools and public places, you have automatic electronic defibrillators, or AEDs. You'll see the boxes. You'll see the little AED hanging up on the wall somewhere. I know in our church we have it. The schools, they have it.
Right.
And yeah, you can listen to it and listen to the prompts, but with me, you're going to actually use it. Not obviously on somebody. I have mannequins and stuff to use. But you'll get the feel for it. You'll get the feel of what it's like to do chest compressions on an adult. The other thing is, how recently have we heard about young athletes collapsing on the field? Predominantly strong, healthy people, or so you'd think, that are just all of a sudden collapsing out of nowhere. This would help you to see the signs. It would actually help you to do action as opposed to just stand around. One of the things that I got to say about CPR is it's not a spectator sport. If somebody collapses, you should be in there doing something, not just standing around. And if nothing else, that person that notices it can kind of take a little bit of control and say, hey, I need you to call an ambulance. I need you to get this, or I need you to do that. So it's what they call control chaos, as opposed to people just standing around saying, oh, look at him, look at him, look at her.
At what age do you think a student would be ready, both cognitive development, taken into consideration, but also maturity?
I would
To
say
take a
high
course?
school
Would you
years.
say eighth grade would be okay?
I would say, yeah, high school years, eighth grade. Yeah, probably 13, 14 up. The other thing is, especially with our elderly population here in Florida,
and certainly
the
Charlotte County has a lot of elderly
with their grandparents, they could help with that. It's just a lot of information, and it's really a short amount of time for what you really get. It's not a week-long class. It's not a semester class. It's about a day-long class, maybe 6 to 8 hours. And you'll get a certification. You'll get a little card. For the BLS classes for the adults that are in medical, it's a little longer, a little more intense training.
Of course.
But again, it also helps, especially the advanced life support for the medical people. It helps.
So how much would a class like that cost? Let's say you're teaching a ninth grade class of, say 6 to 8 hours. How much would that cost the school to teach a class? Because you're teaching not an individual, but a whole class. So you don't need to repeat yourself 30 times if you have 30 students in the class.
Right. So if I was doing a class, would say I can do up to 6 per instructor. I would say it would probably cost about 40 per person, just to be on the safe side for the schools. Now, I do know that schools like Charlotte Technical do offer it, and FSW offers it, but those are for the students. But if lay people want to learn and come in separately on their own, that can be worked as well.
So when you're teaching a group of, say, 6 people, what would that cost the school? What would that cost the school to have you teach a class of 6 students at a time?
About $250, maybe $300.
So that's really not that bad.
No,
it's really not that bad, because they're always talking about, is it too expensive to offer? Where are they going to get the resources from? And is it worthwhile? I would certainly argue that it's absolutely worthwhile, and perhaps a necessity even. And also, it's very affordable, quite frankly. compared to what they
Yes.
waste money on other things.
Yeah.
um,
It's a life skill. I mean, it's
it's a
something
life
that
skill,
once you learn it, you may never have to use it, or you may only have to use it one time.
right?
But it's one of those things that when you need it, you don't forget it.
Well, I
So
think it's one of those things, and I want your perspective on that. Just like learning to use a firearm, and the training with that, it's not just the fact that you can shoot a gun. That's the very last thing you really want to do in a situation. The first thing is to learn the safety around firearms and how to de-escalate a situation so that you don't need to pull it out.
that's correct.
Exactly. And then when you're talking to any firearms instructor, they always teach the last thing you want to do is really pull your firearm. You want to de-escalate the situation, try to walk away, get the person to put the firearm away. You do not want to just fire off. It's not a Hollywood movie, and that's where I think Hollywood is teaching people the wrong thing, especially kids. What is your perspective on that? Can we draw a correlation between how we learn more about safety around firearms and how to de-escalate a situation and help to improve the situation compared to saving a life too with your classes? Yours is about safety and saving life too, and de-escalating a situation to.
Well, I'm first of all no expert in this. So I would say, you always want to try to be calm and cool and collected, as they say, in these situations. Um, if you have to leave the situation, leave the person. If you need to, um, if you need somebody else there, maybe you can call for help. As you're saying about firearms, I was taught in the military and all through life, it's only a last resort type thing. Um, but basically, de-escalating, try to be the cooler head in it. And if it just gets to be too heated, you notice the person's body, you hear the voice raising. You just need to try to get away from that, separate yourself from that situation.
Very good. You are starting these courses very soon, and how can we reach you?
You can reach me by phone, 440-668-2417. I'm working on getting a Facebook page and a web page put up. It'll be under Larry Stafford Consultants. And also on a little separate note, with that, I also have what I call auto hygiene, which is a little different. It's detailing vehicles to your door, and I will put that up.
Very good.
So I've always had like cars and working on them, and I used to work for a Cadillac dealership detailing cars, and I've just always learned how to do it. Between working on ambulances, fire trucks, different cars, my cars. I used to have Mustangs. I used to go to car shows and detail cars. So that's just a
Well,
little
I
separate
guess that's
side
another
thing.
business where, accidents do happen sometimes, and
Yes,
sometimes you need first aid in a work environment. Say you cut yourself or injure yourself badly, you might not need CPR, but you might need first aid, which is a course that you
correct,
teach as well.
correct.
I think it would be really interesting to follow up with you as we get closer to the start of the school year. And I will certainly continue to advocate for CPR and first aid classes to be taught as a mandatory course in high school, because I think it's necessary that we have that. We never know what's going to happen and when you're going to need first aid. That can be, for example, in my children's school, when they were at a charter school, there was an incident of a child that brought in, this was a seventh grader that brought in a pepper spray and fired it off in the cafeteria, injuring 5 kids that had to go to the emergency room. But if you get pepper spray in your eyes, that's the type of first aid that's needed to to clear it as soon as possible as you're waiting for the EMTs to show up. In those kind of situations, I think it's necessary that, you know, we have both teachers and students that are taught these skills, and certainly to recognize what needs to be done in an event of an emergency. And I will advocate that as I'm running for school board here in Charlotte County for District 3. You can vote for anybody that's on the ballot, but vote for me and allow your kids to learn this as a vital and very important skill. Also go on Karina Schmidt, MEGA, MEGA, vote.com, and scan the QR code or click on donate to my campaign. I really appreciate your support. We need to have new thoughts on the school board. Larry, some last thoughts from you. How do you think overall this could really help the school system, as I'm advocating for services like that to become mandatory in at least high school, but I'd like to see it in 8th grade too, because I think they're old enough in 8th grade to learn this.
As far as it would help the school system, I think it could be a good, like, elective type class. Again, only, you know, it's a very short time. It would keep the school system, God forbid there should ever be mass shooting or a mass casualty incident of some type, or even during the hurricane times when there's construction going on, whatever. You would have more eyes, more people, even the kids would be able to see things that are going on that maybe they might need to respond to. Sporting events, like I said, so that would help protect the school. I think you would probably have to check with OSHA and maybe their insurance. It might help with that as well. But it would also maybe help the teachers if they want to, or the faculty members and staff members. Should an incident occur with a staff member, I just think that it would be an overall good thing for everybody, in the fact that it would promote safety, and it wouldn't just put the burdens on just a few people. This way you'd have more eyes and hopefully more even young adults and children acting more responsibly in an emergency.
Very good. I'm going to put your contacts in the description of this podcast, and so anybody can contact you on the phone number that you listed there. I'm also going to have them contact me directly in the event that they lost a phone number. So if you're interested in Larry's services, please contact either Larry directly or feel free to contact my website, which is karinashmidtmegavote.com, and I'll put that in the description as well. We need more people well-trained and informed, educated on the matters. Thank you so much for joining me here today, Larry, and happy 4th of July, Independence Day to you and your loved ones. And I hope to see you soon on here to get an update on your company.
Oh, thank you so much, and happy Independence Day to you and your family, and enjoy your independence.
Absolutely.
Our
Thank you so
freedom
much.
is not free, so
No,
we have to appreciate every time we look at that flag. So
absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, God bless you, and God bless
happy
America.
Independence Day, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye.